Hello, Raising Vibrations community. This is Simon today, and welcome to another video. And in today's video, I'm going to be talking about something that is very close to my heart and is something that I think we're all going to benefit from when we start to embrace being able to see astrology through this lens. So what am I talking about exactly? I'm referring to being able to transition astrology conceptualization and processing from the mental sphere into the heart. So what does it actually feel like, and what is it like to experience astrology archetypes in the body? Like, what is it like to know the essence of the energy as it moves through us versus it being just a bunch of information in our head that sits there and is knowledgeable, but we don't actually have an emotional connection to it, right? It doesn't speak to us in that sense. Now, I'm not saying that nobody does this. I'm not saying that this is something completely new. I'm saying that it's definitely something that is not only a huge part of my personal message in this time of transition, but it is also something that I wish to encourage us to get more in contact with, right? So what do I mean about, moving astrology from thinking to knowing, okay? What I'm talking about here is being able to actually invoke, or not necessarily invoke, but become aware of the essence of how the archetype feels within our sphere, all right? So let me give you an example of what I'm talking about here. So reading an astrology chart, especially from an EA perspective, requires a tremendous amount of sensitivity to what the actual experience is like for the person that you're doing a reading for. And what I've noticed a lot of the time is how you can consistently keep reminding yourself of tuning into the message that is relevant for the person or for yourself, and how that shows up for you in a practical way. Like, how do you actually practically use the awareness that is materialized through an astrology consultation or through your own kind of observations of transits that are happening in your life. So what I want to do is I want to encourage us to see that each archetype has an expression, and that core expression, in an evolutionary way, has a way that it manifests in our world. And so when we talk about Aries, for instance, when we talk about the archetype of Aries, the house, the sign, the planet, what we're actually speaking about here, if I kind of just feel into how I would describe this to you, I feel into the Aries archetype, I take a moment, I'm not thinking about all of the words that I may have read in the internet, I'm just feeling. Aries is about new beginnings. Aries is about new beginnings, something that's just starting. And the imagery that comes up for me is the baby that's just come into the world. Now, all of us that are watching this video have experienced an Aries experience in our lives because we've all been babies, right? We've all actually been birthed into this world. And so just feel into the experience of what it's like for a baby to be born. As it just comes out the womb, that's the separation from Pisces into Aries. That's the ascendant. That's what it feels like. And there's new sensations, new colors, new sounds that cannot be translated, that can't make any sense, but here you are. And your instinctive reaction in that space is to pull back to something that's secure. And so that's why the baby generally needs to go to the mother's chest, because it's kind of representation of the womb. And yet we're outside of the womb. Just think about, or just feel into when was the last time you did something so sporadic, so randomly different from your day, that you tried something completely new, and what came up for you? What did you feel? You felt anxiety from separation. You felt a rush of excitement. You felt a rush of newness, or potential. But you also recognize within inside of yourself, what does courage feel like? How do you tap into the essence of what it's like to conjure up courage? Now think about the last time you watched your Mars transit in your charts and you noticed that Mars was just about to enter your first house. It was like on the cusp of the first house. Now, you go on the internet and you go read, okay, Mars means new direction, there's new things here, but there's still an essence of what are the things that could practically connect you to the importance of that Mars transit in your first house, as an example. You know? And that's the value here. That's the value in this video. That's the value in the message, and what I'm trying to put across is that life is an archetypal expression. And the natural zodiac, which is there on the screen, is a reference to the ways in which these archetypes interface with each other, how they play with each other, and how they make up the formation of this space that we're in from this perspective. And so we have this archetypal language that is present with us. And you think about, for those of you that have gone into mythology, Greek mythology as an example, think about the archetypal expression that is held within the stories. You know, we connect to these stories because they're living through us. We feel as if we've had a Chiron story. You know, the thing that I keep harping on all the time is that whenever we're trying to make sense of Chiron in our chart, we're reading these things on the internet and we're forgetting to actually recognize that Chiron is not intellectual. The essence of Chiron, the archetypal message in Chiron, is not intellectual. You can't read your way through your transit. You actually have to go through it. You have to actually witness the archetypal awareness that shows up in your life. So if you've got Chiron in the fourth house, for instance, the likelihood of your mother showing up within your presence for a period of time is to actually say to you, hey, by the way, there's something here around the mother archetype, the traditions. Just for example, let's just feel into the fourth house there. You've got Chiron in the fourth house, and you think about, what's your relationship like to your mother? What's her relationship like to her mother? If these are the types of things you can go and explore. You can go and explore, what does traditions mean to you? What does traditions potentially meant for the family in that sense? And are there or aren't there? Is there roots? You know, are there orientations within the home structure that are deeply rooted in a core wound? There is so much information held within the archetypal expression that is beyond the intellectualization of what is available on the internet to read. And again, I'm not knocking that and saying it's bad. I'm saying it's run its course. It's there for a purpose in the sense that we can identify. But beyond that, the transformational potential that's held within our astrology charts and what it means to really be able to connect with it in a space that is real for us, we have to live it. We have to know it inside of ourselves, and it's not possible to be able to fully embrace and fully lean into your Mars-Pluto square. How many of you have got Mars-Pluto squares in your chart, or Mars opposed Pluto? I bet you that those of you that have got that, okay, know what it's like to have to meet rage head on. To constantly be recognizing that at some point, if you get triggered, the likelihood of that trigger is not going to be like, oh, well, I got triggered today, and so that was fun. It's going to be lots of emotion coming to the surface, and it's going to sit you, and you have to channel that out somewhere, right? Think about the people that you're around in your life, that are in your life, that are like a close partner potentially, and what they experience when that Mars-Pluto energy comes out. It's not like, you know, it's not little fluffy bunnies and rainbows. It's an energetic archetypal expression of a strong emotion that's present with you, and you've got to really feel into those emotions because they're intense. And the suggestion here is that when you lean into a Mars square Pluto experience, whether it be through transit or through an actual natal chart itself, because we'll have Mars Pluto squares twice, you know, in terms of Mars' cycle around the chart, Mars opposition as well. So there are going to be periods of time that we're going to have a lot of emotion coming to the surface because Mars, in a sense, is bringing to the surface or representing to us that there's a lot of deeper unresolved emotional complexes that are beneath or, you know, in the invisible world, as it were, that are going to be coming into our auric field, and we're going to have to interface with it. And what do we do with that? And most of us, well, a large majority of the world that hasn't yet come to the space in their evolutionary development without any judgment. We've all been there. We all need to come through natural states of growth. It needs to be done that way. That it just bypasses us. So we have a period of time, if it's a Mars transit to Pluto, we have a period of time where there's just lots of anger and then it disappears. But think about the context of actually feeling and recognizing that this archetypal expression is alive in you, and it's showing you something in this phase of your life And can you take advantage of that? Can you realize that there is something there that's needing to be shifted, right? So what does Mars-Pluto feel like? I bet that anybody that's got that over there, please write in the comments, like share with us what your experience is like. Like feel into that rage, that anger that comes up, that's so impulsive and in the moment. And it's like, wow, there it is. There's that anger and you got to deal with that. Let's think about somebody that's got a Uranus in the third house as an example, right? When we feel into Uranus in the third house, okay, so what is Uranus? Uranus is the energy of deconditioning, right? It's to radically mutate and advance and accelerate things, right? So Uranus third house for me shows up as somebody that has a very, the mind is racing very fast and has lots of ideas, but the context of their definition can be too far ahead. So what naturally lands up happening with with Uranus in the third house is a kind of detachment from where we are and how we intellectualize things. What does that isolation feel like? What does that frustration feel like? To lean into the experience of your mind moving faster than where everybody else is in the context of that. And how do you form a bridge? Think about what that means. Like if you can orientate to the realization that there is this part of you that's already thinking 3 steps ahead, but everybody else needs to catch up. How do you build a bridge so that you can work with that energy as a way to pull people into the quantum field that you've experienced? Versus just feeling completely sort of stuck by the fact that it's not possible to communicate and articulate. And that in of itself is not the solution. It's easier said than done in that sense, but this is a point of reference. This is a way to look at something. So let's think about another example. Let's think about the up-and-coming Saturn-Jupiter conjunction that's happening in Aquarius, right, at the end of the year. Let's go feel into Saturn in Aquarius, right? Saturn wants to establish boundary, it wants to establish form, it wants to establish order. Right? So there's going to be a lot of sense of really becoming grounded, becoming solid in things, realizing that there's importance of boundaries. Why do we need boundaries? Safety. We need boundaries for safety because it establishes something concrete. Let's think about this, right? Let's feel into what does it feel like to put on this video, have it defined a specific way, and then I'm talking about something like astrophysics, right? You see astrology, I've defined it as astrology, and here I'm talking about astrophysics and the correlation to playing piano. Like that definition's not going to work. You're not going to be able to emotionally relate to it. Opposite side of Saturn is Cancer. It's the archetypal expression of emotional relatability. So we can feel defined in that area. So Saturn, as it enters Aquarius, is a radical shift in the way that we define things, but also reorganize our boundaries and definitions in our societal context. Let's think about Jupiter as it makes a conjunction to Aquarius there. Jupiter, I think about the inquisitiveness of looking up into the sky and wondering what's out there, right? Feel what it's like to wander. It's open, it's expansive, it's curious, it's overwhelming, So you think about Jupiter conjunct Saturn in Aquarius, and we think about this time where, for a lot of us, we're going to move through a space and a society where we're going to want to reorganize and reshape the way that we define things in accordance with this philosophical structure of Jupiter that wants us to break out of the mold and explore more. What does that mean to not have boundaries in that sense? What does it mean to come into a space where we have to radically reorganize the structure of societal definition according to the values and the beliefs that are present with us now? And I feel into that experience of not knowing. This is a beautiful way to be able to drop into the essence of astrology and realize that the archetypes are alive in us. We are an embodiment of it. And when we're knowing the archetype, like Saturn, for instance, as just to give another example to be crystal clear, let's drop into Saturn again. Imagine you're growing up as a child and your parents are not there. You don't have any parents to look after you. You're having to rely on the state as an example. Or that mom wasn't available or dad wasn't available. How many of you didn't have the dad archetype available to you, right? How many of you struggle with being able to establish strong boundaries in your life? Let's think about the opposite to that, right? Let's feel Saturn as oppressive, as defined as constrictive, you know? You want to try and break out of those things, but you really, as always, every single time there's a constriction, it's like, oh, am I going to do something wrong? Just think about the law. You know, the police are a manifestation of Saturn energy, right? They're established. The intention is for there to be a boundary in place to protect in that sense, and you can even think about it like it's a protect and serve kind of dynamic. But of course, that's not the case in most places. Like Sweden, for instance, you know, that's it's very much something that you can actually go into and say, okay, that's there. So think about this experience of really knowing Saturn. When was the last time you really put a boundary in place and said no? What type of emotions came up to the surface for you when you felt secure in yourself and said, I know that this is not okay for me. This is a threshold that is not okay to be crossed. Think about where Saturn is in your chart. Now feel into the part of yourself where that lack of structure may have been there because it wasn't supporting, and how you feel insecure where Saturn is in your chart. And where life keeps on demanding to you that you need to put in a conscious effort to keep, you know, applying structure there that rewards you by feeling strong in your body, feeling strong in your life. You know, let's think about Pisces, for instance, right? As I kind of leer off into the end of this conversation today, let's feel into Pisces. Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, it's all good. You know, let's not hold anything together. It's all good. You know, it will happen when it happens, man. Just go with the flow. There's so much flowness over there, but wow, I'm not really know where I'm going. Can you see it? Can you see how when you step into the essence of these archetypes and what it sort of feels like to have it in your body, then you know it. And then there's, you know, when you're an astrologer and you're wanting to do this for your practice and you're looking at a chart, like the first thing for me is I want to feel into it. I want to lean into this person that has Mars square their Pluto. And the first thing that's going to come up for me is, you know, let's talk a little bit about how you are learning to, you know, really make sense of your deep creative potential in this lifetime that shows up as strong emotion. And immediately the person's going to feel me. We're going to feel each other. We're going to feel the soul connection. So from thinking to knowing gives us the opportunity to dive into the soul, dive into the experience and to know it. Right? Somebody's got 5 planets in the 12th house, you know. First question you want to ask them is, you know, do you enjoy being very free-spirited and not having any definitions and boundaries, and is it sometimes very difficult for you to actually want to put something in place and feel structured in that sense? You know, and either it's yes, I feel comfortable with it because I'm not interested in it, or no, I struggle a lot with kind of time things, or, you know, I've probably been told off loads of times in the work environment that I come up for late for work because I've got this Pisces nebulist about me. You know, when you feel into that experience and you're talking to somebody in that way, or you're identifying it in yourself, you can actually develop a lot of compassion for what is necessary to orientate your sense of attitude towards how you actually navigate your own astrology in your chart. It's so much more powerful, you know? The last thing that I want to say, just before I let everybody know about this cool little immersion course that I'm starting and on the 1st of March, and I'll let you know what that is. But, you know, just think about the aspects in the chart. How mind-bogglingly nuts it becomes when you sit there and you're like, oh wow, I got this aspect here, I got that aspect there, and I got that Pluto there, and I got that Pluto there, and it's like, slow down. Slow down. Your mind, your body, your emotional state can only process a specific amount of things. So we're all looking at our charts with all these blooming aspects all over the place, and the thing that you're feeling is this kind of mental confusion and spaghetti all over the place, and you're not going like, hey, for a week, I'm just going to observe the Mars in conjunct my moon. What does Mars in conjunct my moon actually mean, Simon? What does it feel like? Right, so let's try as an exercise, right? Mars, instinctive desire, acting in a way, leading into experiences where you don't, new direction, uncertainty, courage. What is it like to live those things? What is it like to feel courageous, step into something that's new? Now the inconjunct feels like what? It feels like you can't actually see anything. So when was the last time you walked in your house and you closed your hand like that? You closed your eye like that and you just try to navigate yourself. I mean, this is real. I'm not joking over here. It looks silly, but it's the truth. Like, put your hand over your eye like that and walk around your house trying to navigate and trying to make sense of things. How does your orientation feel? Well, that's what the moon in conjunction Mars feels like in your chart. The energy over here. So I'm going to put my hand over here, right? And I'm like, here's Mars going, hey, by the way, this is what I'm telling you. And your moon, you can see your moon, but your moon can't see your Mars. And you're like, okay, so there's a part of my awareness that I'm not being able to kind of really make sense of. It's very infuriating. But what happens generally, okay, with an inconjunct in a chart is that there's an aspect of the awareness of the soul that through crises will have certain adjustments that you just need to surrender to, because it's not gonna like radically just appear. The inconjunct's not gonna be there. It's gonna be there. You just need to realize that as you go through your life, you will have these moments where those two archetypes through a transit, for instance, it's always going to be impacted by the moon at least once or twice a month, because it's going to hit your Mars and it's going to hit your moon at some point. You're going to have new and full moons on there. If you're paying attention to your chart and you see it that way, you can actually step into and lean into what is actually happening in your vicinity, in your immediate environment. You can be like, oh, okay, I see that this event happened right now, and I can see that's the inconjunct, and bang, mutation. A moment of awakening arises, and you're like, okay, I can identify this stuff. Do you get it? Okay, so I hope that this video gave you some inspiration to be curious enough to learn what this is about, And what I've done for anybody that's interested in this process, I've set it all up already. And I'm going to Astrology Immersion course, Journey Through the 12 Archetypes, and learn through direct experience rather than mental concepts. Okay? So we're going to have 12 videos. It's going to be running for 12 weeks, and each week you're going to receive a video that I'm going to give to you. It's going to be about 25 minutes long, and I'm going to go through each archetype in detail, and you're going to have like an experiment or an exercise that you do that allows you to actually feel and embody the essence of the archetype so that you actually know it, right? And this gives you this tremendous value in not needing to seek to learn all these things, but actually just have your own intuitive sense of it. Like you can actually get it yourself. And the way that we're going to support this is at the end of every month, we're going to have a monthly call. So the course is, the immersion course is 3 months, each week a video, and the end of each month, we're going to have a monthly call where everybody's going to kind of get together and we're going to talk about the experiences. You're going to ask me loads of questions. And there's going to be a private study group as well, that it's there to be interactive with, to share your experiences, to learn about these things, and to be able to actually, digest what it is that you're learning and going through as a transformational process. So, as I said, the whole entire intention here is to basically explain very, very clearly, astrology does not enact life, it merely reflects it. And this immersion course is essentially designed to take you into the living archetypes, like to directly experience them so that you can actually make that shift from thinking to knowing it, right? And anybody from complete newness to astrology to studying it for however long as you have, there's no barrier between who can benefit from this. This is for everybody. And as I said, this is really, really here to take you deep into yourself, to take you deep into the archetypes, to feel these archetypes in your natal chart in a real way, okay? So if this is something that really appeals to you, if this is something that is that's going to meet your attention, I'm running an early bird for this immersion course, and it ends at the end of this month. And the way to learn about more of this is on the description below, and in the comments, I will put a link to this immersion course. If you feel that you want to ask me some questions before you dive into it, please feel free to email me. We're starting this on the 1st of March, and this is me really, really, really saying, like, let's take the next step and actually use astrology as a beneficial tool than something that kind of just interests us. If you feel called by that process, if you resonate with this video, if you feel that this is something that really speaks to you deeply, share with it in the comments below. I'd like to listen to your experience of this. If you feel that this is really what can benefit astrology and yourself. And for those of you that are interested in the immersion course as well, in the description as well as the comments below, there is the link. All right, my friends, have an amazing day. I'll catch you in another video. Take care. Bye-bye.